Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our ministers, government officials, industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and distinguished guests. From wherever you join us, a very warm welcome to Australia's exclusive country seminar, From Cyberspace to Outer Space, Innovating with Australia in a Post-COVID World. This year, Australia has taken our Global Innovation Alliance partnership with Karnataka to new heights by strengthening our science and technology collaboration and bringing together our strongest ever presence at the Bengaluru Tech Summit, led by our Prime Minister, the Honourable Scott Morrison MP. Today, we'll take a deep dive into the Australia-India Innovation Partnership and explore how Australia's cyber and critical technology credentials make us an ideal partner for India's technology revolution. I'll be the moderator for today's panel discussion, and if we have time for Q&A, I'll also be moderating that. So please use the chat function that is live to add your questions. Now let's get started. To provide an overview of today's session, please welcome Australia's High Commissioner to India, the Honourable Barry O'Farrell, AO.
Namaskara from the Australian High Commission in New Delhi. Special thanks to the Government of Karnataka and the dynamic Deputy Chief Minister Narayan for hosting us during India's premier technology conference, the Bengaluru Tech Summit. And thanks also to those people, those leaders from Australian industry and government, including the Minister for Industry, Science and Technology, for participating in today's event. And I want to also congratulate our team in Southern India for all of their efforts. Australia is a nation of innovators and inventors, responsible for the black box, Wi-Fi and the technology behind Google Maps. And we continue to make pioneering advances in cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, quantum computing and 5G, as well as the policy frameworks governing these. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of technology to us all. And it's made clear that innovating with reliable, like-minded countries is crucial to ensuring a safe, secure and prosperous future for our citizens. India is one of our closest partners on science, technology and innovation. We share a vision of an open and resilient global technology marketplace, and we both want democratic norms and ethics to remain the core of the next generation of technological advances. That's why Prime Ministers Modi and Morrison elevated the Australia-India relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership earlier this year and put in place practical agreements for collaboration between our nations on cybersecurity, emerging technology and critical minerals. Today's session will showcase Australia's track record as a trusted, reliable technology partner. It will outline how we're integrating into Karnataka's innovation ecosystem and the global impact of the Australian-India Innovation Partnership. It'll assist industry, startups and institutions better understand the opportunities and mechanisms which can support two-way technology collaboration and forge new bonds from cyberspace to outer space. So let me start the session by introducing our keynote speaker. After a career as an engineer and running her own industrial relations business, Minister Karen Andrews was elected to the Australian Parliament in 2010 and joined the Cabinet in 2018. She designed Australia's $1.5 billion or 7,500 crore rupee modern manufacturing strategy, led several Women in STEM initiatives, and is guiding the Australian Space Agency's work to triple the size of our space sector to 60,000 crore rupee by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Australia's Minister for Industry, Science and Technology, the Honourable Karen Andrews.
Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I wish I could have been with you in person, but of course, thanks to technology, I can still take part in this fantastic event. India and Australia are both great believers in technology and have a lot to gain in cooperating to develop the best ideas of both our nations. Neither of us will let the COVID-19 crisis hold us back from realising these ideas. And today's summit is a great example of that, with the theme being Next is Now. And now is the time for India and Australia to deepen our already strong bonds, as demonstrated in the commitment of our Prime Ministers to a comprehensive strategic partnership. As Minister for Industry, Science and Technology, I'd like to give an insight into how our two nations are working together all the way from cyberspace to outer space. The panel discussion that follows will consider how India and Australia can innovate together in a post-COVID world in these areas. As we all know, COVID-19 has compelled industry, researchers, governments and nations to work together to respond to the health and economic impacts of the virus. It has highlighted the importance of science and technology in keeping us connected and finding solutions to the challenges we've faced. As Prime Minister Scott Morrison has emphasised, Australia is keen to work with like-minded nations like India to meet and beat these challenges and develop economic opportunities as part of our COVID recovery and beyond. In cyberspace, for example, Australia and India already have strong connections. The Australia-India Comprehensive Strategic Partnership provides opportunities for cooperation on cybersecurity, critical and emerging technologies, and the digital economy, because we know that being at the cutting edge of digital advances and skills development is essential to the success of modern economies. Our aim is to position Australia as a leading digital economy by 2030. As Prime Minister Morrison has said, our government is investing almost $800 million to help our businesses improve their digital capacity. Upgrading cybersecurity and online skills are particularly important for small and medium enterprises, which comprise 98% of all Australian businesses. As part of the government's Cybersecurity Strategy 2020, we are helping to build cyber career pathways and create jobs. This is part of our efforts to meet the estimated need for an additional 17,000 cyber professionals across the economy to 2026, from a base of 20,500 in 2018. During the pandemic, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre of the Australian Signals Directorate has continued to disrupt malicious cyber activity. The government is collaborating with international partners like India to monitor and respond to this malicious cyber activity and share the lessons we have learnt. The Australian government is also investing strongly in artificial intelligence, blockchain and quantum computing. We're working with representatives and experts from government, academia and industry to implement our national blockchain roadmap. We're supporting 2 blockchain pilots focused on critical minerals and food provenance, which will reduce compliance costs and encourage broader take-up of the technology. There are also significant opportunities in the growing quantum technology sector. The potential for quantum computing to accelerate discovery of new medicines through molecular simulation and to aid in sensing mineral resources deep underground are just 2 examples. Australia is home to a range of businesses focused on advancing the use and science of quantum technology. In particular, we have a strong research capability and are home to world-leading companies working out how to build quantum computing hardware. I also released a national AI ethics framework last year to guide those looking to design, develop and implement AI in Australia. And my department is working with selected Australian businesses to pilot the principles. These are areas which offer opportunities for cooperation with India. Together, we can shape the international discourse on cybersecurity, technology and AI ethics. Following the virtual Leaders Summit between Prime Ministers Scott Morrison and Narendra Modi on the 4th of June this year, I announced that $15 million would go to extending the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund for another 4 years. The fund is the Australian Government's largest bilateral science program, with a total commitment now of nearly $100 million since 2006. The fund facilitates collaboration between Australian and Indian researchers on strategically focused leading-edge science and technology projects. It also helps build long-term alliances between our respective research institutions and innovative businesses. Since 2006, the Fund has supported more than 350 collaborative activities, including 138 joint research projects, 33 workshops, 181 fellowships, and 2 institutional partnerships. These activities have ranged from collaboration in agriculture, energy and water security to astronomy, nanotechnology and vaccines. Previous projects have included advancing research in understanding and controlling noise, which is critical to the development of quantum computers, and developing innovative battery technology to store energy from renewable sources. Together, we are also shooting for the stars, working closely on civil space activities. This is underpinned by a formal Memorandum of Understanding signed between our two nations in 2012. There are significant opportunities for space agencies, research organisations and commercial sectors in both of our countries. These include Earth observation and data analytics, robotics and space life sciences. Our space agencies are already working together on the opportunity to position temporary Indian tracking facilities in Australia to support their space mission. This mission will see India become just the 4th nation to send a crew into space. The sky is the limit in what we can achieve together. Our collaboration and friendship will only grow in the future. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I wish you all the best for the rest of the summit and hope you will enjoy our Australian session.
Our next speaker will provide an Indian perspective on the topic, highlighting the growing science and technology partnership between Australia and Karnataka. It's a pleasure to introduce one of the most senior members of the Government of Karnataka, who is currently heading the state's technology and innovation agenda and is a true friend of Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Karnataka's Deputy Chief Minister, the Honourable Dr. C.N. Ashwath Narayan.
A very good morning to Mrs. Karen Andrews, Minister for Industry, Science and Technology, Honourable Barry O'Farrell, Australian High Commissioner to India, and to all the Australian speakers part of the session today. Warm greetings to all the audience members part of the Australian Global Innovation Alliance session today. Australia and India have been a long-standing partners, and strategic relationship between the two was initiated in 2009. What has intensified the association is the increasing people-to-people connectivity, including a budding Indian diaspora in Australia. It is a matter of pride that Karnataka has been identified as a priority state for Australia as a part of India Economy Strategy 2035. Bilateral high-level delegation visits between Karnataka and Australia have paved the way for a deep technology and innovation partnership. The Premier of Victoria, Honourable Daniel Andrews' visit to Bengaluru and interaction between Victorian Governor and the Chief Minister of Karnataka in 2018, Minister and Ambassador participation in previous editions of BTS are just a few highlights of the growing relationship between Karnataka and Australia. There have been several technology-focused programs that have helped in the growth of both the ecosystems. Victoria India Government Exchange Program, first of its kind in India, which had a multi-governmental department participation from both sides, has cemented a firm government-to-government relationship between the participating counterparts. Startup exchanges between Karnataka and Australian states, Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales have enabled deeper ecosystem connect. Our government is focused on promoting new and emerging technologies, and we have undertaken several initiatives for skilling, incubating startups, developing global alliance, and for providing legal framework for supporting innovation. It is indeed remarkable to see the importance and focus given by Australia for cybersecurity, and I am honored to provide remarks for today's session. I look forward to learning more about Australia's cybersecurity and space initiatives. Karnataka was the first state to realize the need of having an exclusive cybercrime police station to handle the IT related offences. The country's first cyber police station was started in Criminal Investigation Department headquarters in 2001. Government of Karnataka has established the Cyber Security Center of Excellence to facilitate development of Cyber Security Center of Excellence to facilitate development of cyber security industry in Karnataka and to provide requisite infrastructure to encourage domestic technology firms to scale up. Going forward, Karnataka and Australia will continue to work together to further strengthen and grow the association. Cyber and cyber enabled critical technologies cooperation, recently announced by Prime Minister of India and Australia, will be one of the areas of focus for Karnataka to work together with Australian counterparts. I would like to wish a successful session for Australia and looking forward to furthering interactions to strengthen our relation. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.
Thanks very much, Dr. Narayan. It's great to see a mutual commitment to strengthening bilateral ties and collaboration across our science, technology and innovation agenda. So now we turn to the main session and our expert panel. First, we have Australia's Ambassador for Cyber Affairs and Critical Technology, Dr. Tobias Feakin. Since 2017, Dr. Feakin has led Australia's whole-of-government international engagement to advance and protect Australia's national security, foreign policy, economic and development interests in cyberspace. He was a member of the independent panel of experts that produced Australia's 2016 cybersecurity strategy, which has since been updated, and led development of Australia's international cyber engagement strategy. Today, Ambassador Feakin will talk about cyber global geopolitics and threats that we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, how government and industry are responding, and what Australia and India can do together to improve cyber resilience across the region. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. And thank you, firstly, should say thank you so much also to the government of Karnataka for putting this event together and hosting and keeping us moving forward through this COVID-19 era. Thanks also to the Australian Consulate General in Chennai doing such an awesome job in pulling us all together today. I think there's no doubt that COVID-19 has tested our combined resilience, but something that has really heartened me is that even during a very challenging period, great things still grow and emerge. And one of those great things that has emerged and grown this year is the partnership between Australia and India. Genuinely, as our High Commissioner, His Excellency Barry O'Farrell outlined, really we are in a very different place now with our relationship. And from my part, I started off in India in January there physically, and I've actually attended in the virtual world more virtual events in India than any other country this year. So it's always a privilege to be back in India, albeit virtually. I can't wait to be back there in person. Always a pleasure and a joy. But also, unfortunately, COVID-19 has taught us that the bad guys are still out there, still looking to leverage every opportunity they can in order to take advantage for malicious purpose the current pandemic. And we've seen that across a whole array of different threat actors. Perhaps not so much that we've seen an enormous spike and increase in activity, but more retargeting and repurposing of the way that state-based actors, criminals, and other entities are operating in this environment. We've seen the malicious targeting of health infrastructure, which seems to be pretty abhorrent when it's one of the most critical forms of infrastructure during a pandemic is our health infrastructure, but we've seen that on a regular basis. We've also seen the way in which criminals have utilized COVID-19 to if you like, haze the way in which they conduct their activities and use COVID-19 in order to make money from those of us that are going online in far increased rates than any time before. And we also see the growth of misinformation and disinformation, which again, when accurate, good information is an absolute imperative to keep our population safe, seems like a particularly unacceptable form of online behavior during this period. But it's something we've seen and something that jointly countries are wanting to address. And, you know, there must be consequences for malicious cyber activity as much as there are consequences in the physical space. You know, the law needs to apply online equally as it does offline. So what have we done? How have we responded to those threats? Well, there's various means. Obviously, all our respective agencies are working incredibly hard to raise awareness amongst our populations, our businesses, and our friends internationally in order that we can all be protected against these kinds of incidents. And the Australian Cybersecurity Centre does an enormous amount of information sharing and ensuring that we can make everyone else as safe as far as possible as we are in the online environment. But also it's important that in the international space, we're voicing these concerns through multilateral bodies like the UN, where we have voiced our concern aligned with technical advisories to the international community around the attacking of health infrastructure and such attacks as the Czech Republic incident of attacking a COVID-19 health research facility earlier this year. And in June this year, along with India, we co-authored with 10 other countries a joint statement, a UN statement against misinformation and disinformation, which was supported by 132 other member states, which is important to do. We still see this kind of activity going on, but the more we can put a spotlight on it, the better protected we will be in the longer term. And we're working more closely than ever with industry. Industry are one of the most important partners in this equation to ensure that we get our responses right in the fact that a lot of the equities, interests and capabilities rest in the private sector, more so than government at times. But most, I would like to talk about how is Australia engaging internationally and how are we engaging bilaterally with India. I've often said it, maybe some of you have heard me speak before, talk about this a lot. Cybersecurity, the technology space is a team sport. We're stronger together. We're going to be better equipped if we are in those conversations, those information sharing partnerships and collaborations in how we combine our efforts. We're going to be better off for that in the longer term. We recognise the strong linkages between cyberspace, critical technology and geopolitics and geostrategic competition. It's inescapable in the current context. Recognising that, we are redeveloping our approach to international cyber and critical technology engagement. So stand by for, in a couple of weeks' time, we will be launching a new strategy which will make statements around how we'll try and influence the international tech discussions and development to ensure tech is optimised to drive economic growth, prosperity and stability. And partnership will be key around areas like disinformation, misinformation, critical technology standards, markets and supply chains, research, industry, and innovation. And so important here are our bilateral partnerships. And I will finish on the collaboration with India, which we're all so proud of, I think, jointly, wherever we sit, be it in Australia or India. As Prime Minister Morrison outlined yesterday, the Australia-India framework for arrangement on cyber and critical technology cooperation agreed in June. It's enhancing how we collaborate to promote, preserve an open, free and safe and secure internet. And it sets out ways in which we can act together to enhance digital trade, strengthen cybersecurity, and enhance both our countries' ability to address rapid technological change. And it also underpins the soon-to-be launched Australia-India Cyber and Critical Technology Partnership Grant Programme, which will be a fantastic function to put meat on the bones of our R&D efforts and how we collaborate on capacity building around the region, how we combine our research institutions and industries ever further in areas such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, big data analytics, and a whole range of other emerging critical technologies as well. The grant projects, they'll focus on the development and application of critical technology ethical frameworks and technical standards. And it's crucial that we get those settings right, because they will form, these technologies and our partnerships will form the backbone of the economy coming out of COVID and over the foreseeable future. So as the Australian government, we put a huge amount of importance on this relationship, both in terms of the finance that we put into it, but more importantly, the connections that we are solidifying all the time with our Indian partners. And I'm looking forward to creating more partnerships, more meaty partnerships in the years to come, to ensure that this technology collaboration just grows and grows and grows. So thank you so much for your time. As ever, a real privilege to be here, and look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thanks very much for that, Ambassador Feakin. Some concerning trends there, but good to know that there are ways that we can mutually protect our interests by working together. And we'll share further details about that new grant scheme once it's available next month. We'll now move to quantum technology, which is opening up new frontiers in computing, communications and cybersecurity. Australia is a world leader in quantum computing, and as you heard from our Minister Andrews, since 2006, we have been facilitating partnerships among our universities and institutions through the Australia-India Strategic Research Fund. Our next speaker is a previous recipient of this grant and a multi-award winning quantum physicist. 2018 Australian of the Year, Professor Michelle Simmons AO, is internationally renowned for creating the field of atomic electronics and leading the global race to develop a quantum computer in silicon at the atomic scale. Today, Professor Simmons will talk about her work at UNSW, highlighting how collaboration with the Indian Institute of Science has supported advances in quantum computing. And she'll also talk about the applications of quantum technology and potential risks that we'll have to mitigate in a post-COVID world. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. As with Tobias, I've had a great interaction over the last decade or so with my colleagues in India. It's been a research project in the quantum technology space that really combines the expertise that India has in making very sensitive measurements of quantum devices with a kind of world-leading fabrication team that we have here in Sydney. We look to partner with the best in the world, and obviously the Indian Institute of Science is right up there with the best in the world. So we had a delightful interaction over the last decade or so. But just to give you a sense, I'm leading here a research centre in Sydney. It actually has 9 universities here in Australia linked to that centre, over 220 researchers and 25 international partners across the world. We're very focused on trying to build both a quantum computer, either in the silicon material platform or an optical quantum computing platform, and in particular keen to link those to secure communication networks. This is a research centre that's been going since 2000. This has some fantastic results in demonstrating some of the highest quality quantum bits or qubits in silicon, some of the fastest gates in that material system, and really leading that platform in silicon globally. Also in optical quantum computing, we've demonstrated some of the highest results there in terms of demonstrating real algorithms on optical platforms and trying to build that up to a commercial kind of system. The interesting thing about this field is it's still at that intersection between fundamental research and industrial research. And so it's really quite a unique thing where we're bringing together large research teams across the globe, but we're also getting government to come into the mix to support companies and industry to support this growing industry. And that means people like the Commonwealth Bank or Telstra, so big corporates in Australia here supporting this kind of nascent global quantum technology industry that's emerging. The exciting thing is over the next decade or so, you'll start to see the results coming out from this. Already companies are coming out with their first kind of quantum processors. And last year, Google had a fantastic result where they demonstrated quantum states can outperform classical for a certain type of calculation. So it's a field that's taking off exponentially. In amongst that, I'm aware that there's lots of plans in India to try and grow this sector there. And there are fantastic researchers across the country that we've had the privilege to work with. I'll highlight my interaction with the Indian Institute of Science. It really was a long-term collaboration there where we actually sent samples to India to be measured with their experts. Those samples demonstrated some of the lowest noise systems in quantum devices. It's one of the key killers to building a large-scale quantum computer is to demonstrate these very low noise systems. And we got global records both back a decade ago and right through to this year. We've demonstrated we've got the lowest noise quantum devices in a solid state material. Now, going forward, how is quantum going to help everybody? It's a transformational technology. It's bringing on a whole new type of computing power that allows us to solve complex problems in minutes that otherwise would take thousands of years. But it's also going to help our long-term ability to keep data secure. So the combination of secure communications and quantum computing together is a very powerful technology, and we're delighted to work with various countries across the world that are like-minded to try and build this technology together. Some of the applications in that space range from, data security I've already talked about, very fast database searching, being able to send information across the world in aeroplanes or traffic, where you can actually reduce the costs of those, the fuel costs of those, understanding drug design so that we can actually develop drugs that are targeted to individuals, and right across the finance sector. So pretty much every industry that relies on data will be impacted by quantum computing. So it's a very, very exciting field. We're aware that that field is growing exponentially. We're very keen to partner with the groups in India as they grow going forwards. We found the collaborations have been fantastic. We love the fact that researchers in India have a very deep fundamental understanding of the field and really understand things from the beginning and engineer things up. It's one of the skills that we've noticed that comes particularly from India. Students are fantastic. We love working with them globally across the country, the two countries. So with this, I'd just like to end by saying it's a very exciting time, huge amounts of opportunities for our two countries to collaborate in this space. And it's a field that's only going to keep growing. So I look forward to continuing ongoing interactions with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Professor. An impressive overview of your work and the potential to really change the world and perhaps take us into a new space age. This is exactly the sort of science, innovation, technology partnerships that we intend to foster through further AISRF projects and also the new grant scheme under the Cyber and Critical Technology Partnership. We'll now move to the Sunshine State, Queensland. Our next speaker is Queensland's Chief Entrepreneur and the CEO for Everledger, which uses blockchain technology to track high-value assets such as diamonds, art and wine. Miss Leanne Kemp is an award-winning leader in technology and insurance and works on a global scale to encourage entrepreneurship, innovation and business sustainability. Today, Ms. Kemp will talk about Australia's startup ecosystem and especially the opportunities in Queensland for incubation, collaboration and investment. And Ms. Kemp will also highlight Australia's blockchain capabilities, her own company's tech platform, and why trust and consistently reliable partners like Australia will be the main currency across the international system in a post-COVID world. Over to you, Leanne.
Thank you, distinguished guests. It's a privilege to be here and certainly addressing the audience at large. I do remember it was the better part of over a year ago now where our Prime Minister Scott Morrison launched the India Economic Strategy to 2035, and it was really a benchmark trampoline for companies like myself and entrepreneurs like me to recognise what is very large signalling in the market in the importance of what is largely a frugal innovation, which is the key to driving better business links for the future. Queensland is a very proud state. In fact, I think so proud that we have incredible links across the world and particularly with Trade Investment Queensland. We hang our hat on the fact that we have greater exports than New South Wales and Victoria combined. And of course, we have the Great Barrier Reef, incredible natural resources, but more importantly, amazing natural talent, which is entrepreneurship. There are 35,000 amazing startups and entrepreneurs and innovators just like me in the state of Queensland that are not only thinking about the future possible, but they're making it reality. Growing businesses at a speed that are addressing future economies. And more recently, our government appointed a number of new ministerial roles in the Minister for Hydrogen, Water and Digital Economy, a testament to the fact that we're 5 years in the making of the reality that the time is now to embrace these economic strategies for growth and not only that, recovery. Being from the diamond trade, of course, India is very familiar to me in Surat and in Mumbai and in many of the cutting and polishing locations across that great, incredible country. And what I have appreciated is that regardless of the challenges of industry, that India and Australia have a very significant alignment of values and value in the creation and the alignment of innovation. And of course, on the backdrop of some of the challenges that we face in the world today, whether that be on the 3 tsunami waves that we're currently surfing, the pandemic, the global economy, and of course, climate, environment and sustainability, I certainly would say the work in entrepreneurship, recognising the importance of innovation, not just through scientific endeavours and breakthrough in technology, but also that there are business model reinventions that are being grasped, social enterprise and social entrepreneurship, is what I notice. Those profit for purpose companies that are being built, that are giving back into community as a definite part of their business model, understanding that the balance sheet certainly presents more than just the profit and loss. It's the profit, loss and impact. Queensland has $755 million in committed funding to building incredible infrastructure programs, grant support and education for entrepreneurs and scale-ups right across this great state. We often talk about unicorns in the world, those Silicon Valley leaps that go to $1 billion. We don't say that in Queensland. We have zebras, the rare but real creatures that we're growing, not those mythical ones with a horn. And we start to understand the importance of these trade relationships, because ultimately it's a real problem to be solved, a customer to be defined and embraced, and a government to ensure that policy keeps up with those technical advancements. And I would say we are absolutely in alignment when it comes to the work that's well entrenched across our both great countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Leanne, and great to see that there's so many opportunities to collaborate under the programs with the Queensland Government. Now, as Prime Minister Morrison said yesterday, Australia has a very strong commercial presence in Bengaluru, with over 25 companies investing in over 10,000 local jobs. Many are attracted to the access to global talent, technology, India's largest startup ecosystem, and India's greatest concentration of multinational R&D centres. This includes Australia's largest telecommunications provider, Telstra, which has over 30 years' experience operating in India. Telstra recently transitioned from a joint venture to become a genuine technology partner with their new state-of-the-art Innovation Capability Centre in Bengaluru. Today we have Telstra Executive, Mr. Gavin Standen, on the line, who'll provide an overview of Telstra's global partner ecosystem, how the company has adapted to the new normal, and how their technology collaboration in Bengaluru is on track to have a global impact. Over to you, Gavin.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everyone. It's a honor and a privilege to be part of the Bengaluru Tech Summit 2020. I would like to start by wishing everyone compliments of the festive season, and I hope this new year brings in good tidings. I'm a very proud son of the soil, and it gives me great pleasure to talk about what Telstra has achieved by leveraging what we have come to in India and specifically in Bangalore. As many of you might know, Telstra is a global telecommunications and technology company based in Australia with the revenues of around $27 billion plus. It commands significant market share across all customer segments, and we do operate across 20 different countries in the world. The key vision for Telstra is to build a digitally connected future so everyone can thrive. And that becomes our epicenter as what we need to drive around innovation. So Telstra has a very deep and profound connection in India. The first cell phone call was made by the then Union Minister of Telecommunications, Sukram, and the erstwhile Chief Minister of West Bengal, Jyoti Basu, on the 31st of July, 1995. The network at that point in time was a joint venture with Telstra and the BK Modi Group. And post that, for 30 years, I could sum up by saying, we came here for talent and costs, but we continue to stay here for innovation, capability, and the leverage we have with startups. Telstra has made significant investments in developing open innovation assets. We built our very own state-of-the-art innovation and capability center in Bangalore, along with co-creating with our partners across India. We are very proud of our partnerships in India, as the value of the partnership today is measured on innovation value rather than just commercial benefits. Open innovation cuts across different parts of the industry pyramid, from engaging with the academia, leveraging the startups, co-creating with our partners, collaborating with the industry bodies, and most importantly, some of the great ideas we get from our very own employees really drive innovation to the next level. In India, this ecosystem created an opportunity to access emerging technologies around AI and ML, IoT capabilities, 5G, predictive analytics, along with radical concepts to solve business problems, along with improving business resiliency. And just to talk about a few examples on how innovation was amplified during this COVID-19 period, I'll just talk about a few of them. The first one was the buildup of digital operations has been accelerated thanks to our access to next-gen infrastructure, it managed to drive a very secure home office infrastructure for our employees. Second, rapid process automation and robots started to become collaboration tool for our employees and not a competition anymore. And our customers really gained out of this collaboration. Next, conversational AI was used to bridge the gap between a human and machine interface and ensured secure support. Today, I can proudly state that the complete employee and customer life cycle can be done virtually. And last but not the least, come COVID-19, we had to double our network in just 30 days flat, which probably sometimes could have taken a year. So eventually, the ability to change at speed and sustain the change is a new challenge. Not to forget how we have to be innovative in keeping in touch with our employees, stay connected with them, engaging with them, and motivating them. So managing all these changes impacting a significant number of our direct and indirect staff across India was not easy. It took us a couple of weeks post the first lockdown to get to an optimal operational capacity to serve our customer. The constant during the period of lockdown and working in the new normal has been innovation. If I have to sum up and wrap up my experience during these times, I can confidently state that Industry 4.0 is happening at an accelerated pace. Why? Due to the significant strides we're making in mobility, very advanced human-machine interfaces that we have to deal with, leveraging cloud infrastructure, and a very significant uptake in as-a-service models. All these have been a massive shot in the arm for innovation. So at the end, thank you for the opportunity once again. Stay safe, continue to innovate for a better tomorrow. This is going to be the insurance for our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Gavin. A very important message there on collaborating together, working together, and innovating. Now, moving on to opportunities in space. Australia may have only recently established the Australian Space Agency, but we have a long and proud history in space. For over 50 years, we have been an economic, scientific, and research collaborator with global space leaders. Australia and India have been partnering since 1987, and while we have a strong foundation of engagement with ISRO, from data calibration, laser ranging, and previously launching an Australian satellite from ISRO facilities, there is so much potential to do more. Our next speaker is Mr. Lloyd Damp, CEO and founder of Southern Launch, a company that aims to provide rocket launch infrastructure and associated commercial launch services. The company actually celebrated Australia's first commercial space launch in September this year. So Mr. Damp will provide an overview of Australia's space sector and ecosystem, as well as the unique advantages of partnering with Australia. He'll highlight the key trends that are improving access to space, what his company offers Indian partners, and the scope for Australia-India space collaboration. Over to you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for having me along today and to be a part of this fantastic summit as the two countries work together. Given all of the troubles that the world has been experiencing over these last few months, it's fantastic to see how the two nations can come together and realize new frontiers of opportunities. And one of those key opportunities is around space. And what we're starting to see in the space environment is that a lot of commercial off-the-shelf technologies are being able to reduce the barrier, reduce the cost of entry into the space field. Now, that means for countries like Australia and India, the big innovators, that these smaller startup companies can explore their ideas and bring them to market sooner. Based on that simple methodology, the Australian Space Agency and the broader space economy is aimed to be growing to $12 billion by 2030. Now, what's interesting is to understand that the Indian space economy is already twice the size of Australia's. And looking at the value that the Indian space program provides or produces very broadly into India is quite inspiring And it's something that we here in Australia really want to partner and grow together as we move forward. So, as I said, it's our love for commercial off-the-shelf technologies. It's our mobile phones, it's our personal computers. All of those new technologies are being placed into satellites and being put out into space. The key change that we've started to see in all of that is that instead of the satellites then being the size of a bus, or having very long lifespans, we're starting to see these small satellites that only exist in orbit, for 4 or 5 years, and they provide a specialist service down to their consumers, be it to provide the Internet of Things or specialized Earth observations, which then ties into the economics and the efficiencies on how we operate better, be it better logistics, better mining, or better agriculture or aquaculture. So it's a very, very exciting time for both of our countries to be working towards some of these big challenges that some of the other speakers have spoken about, be it cybersecurity, be it telecommunications, and even then looking at things like how we then apply quantum computing in these new and novel areas. And this is where Australia can really play a unique part in realizing a lot of those, I'll say, futuristic goals. Because of our huge open spaces, Australia has a unique ability to provide those secure nodes for things like optical telecommunications, using lasers to communicate from satellites down onto the ground. That's something that we are very, very lucky with here. Likewise, the ability to support things like space debris tracking and space traffic management, all things that as we start to place more and more of these small, I will jokingly say, mobile or cell phone size satellites up into orbit, we will have to monitor and manage how we use space more efficiently. But the final key part of that whole equation is how we then get the satellites and the different components out into space to affect the outcome that we as two nations are trying to achieve. India has such a very proud history of truly world-leading access to space, be it through the rockets that they manufacture, likewise the satellites and how you use the data. And into this mix, this is where Australia can come in and provide one of the fundamental inputs to that capability around our wide open spaces and specifically launching facilities. And this is where Southern Launch has come along and has identified that as the need for satellites has changed, right, from the large bus-sized satellites down to satellites the size of fridges or down to shoeboxes. So the orbits that these satellites go into has changed as well. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with multiple rocket companies to provide the launch services and support to bring rockets onto a launch pad and get them into space. So we have both the ground facilities as well as then the staff and the policies and processes to greatly expedite and simplify getting those satellites into space. We're currently working with a couple of Indian companies at the moment to realize this for both of our nations. And I just want to say it's absolutely incredible to see the drive, the understanding, and the commitment within Indian companies to work with Australia and achieve these fantastic outcomes. So very excited to see how these opportunities present themselves, especially as we start to tie in a lot of the advanced artificial intelligence or machine learning, where both countries can materially benefit from the outcomes of those research programs. So thank you once again for having me along today.
Thank you very much for that overview. And we know that there's been announcements in India on new reforms to privatise the sector here. So we look forward to seeing where there might be further opportunities for collaboration on end-to-end space missions as well. So we have some time for questions, probably about 5-6 minutes. I'll start with one for Ambassador Feakin while we're on space. As more of our critical technology and infrastructure relies on satellites, how can we mitigate against cyber warfare in space?
Does conjure an image of Star Wars, really, doesn't it? And going back to the early 80s and the Star Wars programs of the Reagan era. Look, I mean, one of the things to start off with, the thing I find fascinating actually about satellite technology is in internet provision. And a lot of the kind of disparate parts of the world, which was incredibly hard to provide physical infrastructure, satellites used to provide a lot of that bandwidth, or relatively small bandwidth for remote countries. And then, you know, it was pretty regular, didn't work brilliantly, but it was sufficient to, you know, hold certain services and connectivity. So that, if you like, they dropped out of fashion for a while. Now they're back with vengeance. And actually, there's a huge amount of bandwidth uplift now that satellites can provide remote places very, very rapidly. And we've actually utilized some of that in our development programs in India, in the Pacific. And I've been really fortunate to visit some of those sites. I think a couple of points. Firstly, in terms of a lot of the legacy equipment that's up in space, it wasn't designed with cybersecurity in mind. As much as a piece of critical infrastructure, you know, whether it be an energy plant or a piece of transportation that is a legacy, you know, of decades ago, cybersecurity wasn't there. So it's, well, how can we build in cybersecurity after the fact? And then I guess it's to Lloyd's point, which is this burgeoning, really exciting private sector induced satellite party that's really starting to take place. And there it's about using solid principles that we would in any other environment, which is, well, firstly, what about the people who are working within that company to design that piece of infrastructure? You know, do they have the right skills? Are they thinking about cybersecurity and the data holdings that company, and also, you know, the data that will be relayed by that particular satellite? Secondly, you know, the technology itself, is it, you know, is security being designed in? Is it security by design? We talk about that across a whole range of different technology areas, but it's equally true of a satellite that's about to go up into space. And then I guess there's a piece around frameworks, which is, if you like, the cyber warfare part. Well, look, we've agreed through various UN bodies already that international law applies in cyberspace equally as it does, you know, in the physical world. So the same thing applies here. You know, if it's that there are still elements of this normative discussion that we've got to have at the multilateral space. And we know recently there has been a co-sponsored adopted resolution of the UN First Committee on Reducing Space Threats through Norms, Rules and Principles of Responsible Behaviours, in a similar way that we've been looking at cyberspace. So, you know, I think it's just using good common sense principles, but it's going to be pretty exciting with the amount of satellite capability that's up there, that's for sure. But it's a real worry if that's not being thought about. You begin to get bandwidth interruption, you know, data, unwanted data transfers to malicious third parties. The reliability of the satellites can be disrupted themselves. So there's a whole array of threats. But if we approach it in that practical and sensible way that we're trying to across the spectrum of critical infrastructure, we'll be in a better place.
Thanks very much for that. A lot to think about in the future, indeed. We probably have time for one more question, so I'll go to Professor Simmons, if that's okay. How could both countries support more women and girls to take up STEM to improve technology outcomes for our societies?
This is a great question, and one that I have mulled over for most of my life. I think one of the things that I've realised, particularly over the last couple of years, is that there is just a very small pipeline of girls coming through. I have to admit, I was delighted when I gave a talk in India, a talk where there was probably about 1,000 students there, and it was 50-50 females and males in the audience. Now, Australia is in a lot worse position than that. But it comes down to letting girls from a very early age, from primary school through to secondary school, seeing the opportunities that are out there. Having people out there that are very passionate about the field, who have had a great time in the field in computing, maths, physics, engineering, and having them get out there and talk to those young girls and then bringing them through. I know that fellowships work incredibly well at universities and schools. awards help young females to get recognised, to realise that, you know, this is a great field to be in. But really, it's giving them the opportunities, and I think that is definitely changing. India is in, I think, a lot better position in getting girls out there. It's definitely, I see it. We have lots of students apply from India that are coming through the system. But going forwards, it's really letting them have the opportunity to play, be part of it, and realise that it's a fantastic life to have. So just really highlighting how good it is.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Professor. So look, we have run out of time. I'm sorry we haven't got through all of your questions, but we have taken a note of them and we'll do our best to respond. We'll liaise with the panellists to get answers for you. A huge thank you to our panellists from government and industry who gave their valuable time to outline opportunities and mechanisms that could support two-way technology collaboration. They've also highlighted Australia's cyber and critical tech capabilities and reinforced Australia's commitment as a reliable partner for India's technology revolution. So please stay in touch, take the opportunity to visit our virtual booth and on-demand content over the next 30 days. You can leave your card, leave a message. You can also reach out to any of our diplomatic missions across India. Please stay safe and well, and we look forward to working with you, the Karnataka government, industry and startups to ensure the Australia-India Innovation Partnership has a global impact. Thank you very much.